You would think this would be an easy answer to a simple question. How long does an accident stay on your driving record? It's supposed to be an easy answer, but insurance has gotten so convoluted and complicated that there's a ton of different situations. We're going to go over the majority of them that I've personally seen and how they all got handled. If you're in one of the common states, I'll try to put in the description below the states that I'm talking about. There are these tort states and non-tort states, and then there's not at fault and at fault states, what's what I call them. And what that means is if there's a not at fault accident, do they still count the claim against you? I know in homeowners side, 100%, every claim that you file on a homeowner's claim, they didn't cause it. You might not have caused it, likely didn't. But for some reason, the house wasn't at the standard to withstand the problem, and that created a claim. So that's going to raise your rate and increase the premium of the following year once you get that renewal. The auto is a little bit different to where that type of claim is calculated different because each state is regulated by some sort of governing body to where the commissioner, as they call them, that's the person that gives the okay or the nay on what a company can and can't do. So in these scenarios, they say in some states, let's use Texas as an example, that's the one that always has clicked in my head. If you get in an accident and it's not your fault, it still counts against you. In other states, those won't count against you because they're not your fault. They shouldn't, but the claim still happened. So you're paying a premium in these scenarios, and because you filed the claim, the rate can go up. But now it's not drastic, it's tiny compared to if you were at fault in the claim and you caused it, but it's still a rating factor. So how long do they really go? Let's talk about the actual question that we asked. Most commonly, the 3-year and the 5-year. Those are the two numbers you're gonna see mostly. And there are some 10 years, and we'll talk about that as a side piece. But 3 years is your claims in most states. 5 years is also for other states. And you're like, Mark, come on, you gotta just tell me which state. And I'll try to gather that information and put it below. I just can't. This would be an hour-long channel if I said every single state and what they do. I'll use Michigan as an example. That's the state that I'm in. And we're technically a 5-year state. So they can rate for up to 5 years, but they don't have to. Most to all companies do. Some and very few companies rate for the 3 years. Now those 3-year companies might have a higher rate because they're trying to plan on, okay, the guy that's in 4 years, he's already getting a $300 a month bill here. What if we only charge him $280 and get rid of the claim? So maybe we gain that customer but not cost us an arm and a leg because there's still a higher risk because they had that claim. It's all about risk, the risk avoidance. And if you've had one claim, the odds of having another one are higher than the person who's had none. Going back to the other one that we said, let's say Texas, for example, where that not at fault claim happened, they typically only go 3 years in Texas as well. But in another scenario, the not at fault accident, even though that doesn't technically count against you in the state that we're talking about, if you have a second claim in that 3 to 5 year period, what the state has decided is if you have 2 not at fault accidents, now they can count them against you. So if you've had one, it's kind of a forgiveness. It's not a rateable increase that an insurance company can do in most states. But if you have a second, they can go back to the original date from the first one, count that one, and count the second one. Once again, not all companies, it's up to them. If they don't want to rate against it, they don't have to. It's the risk that they're willing to take. 99% of the companies are going to rate that, but there are a few little ins and outs that don't necessarily care so much about that second accident. The older the accident gets, the less they care about it. So if it's a 5-year state and you're on year 4, it might have cost you $100 a month, let's say, on the first year, but once you got to the second year, now it's $90 and then $75 and then $40, and then now you're almost to year 5, they're only rating you a couple dollars extra for that claim. The way that insurance companies have combated this to essentially partner with their customers is they started giving a claims-free discount. For those of you that said, well, it's not fair that I'm paying more because that guy had an accident, that's technically what insurance is still though, and I'll link the video to that if you want to learn about it at the end of this. They're essentially saying, we'll give you a discount for not having claims. So every 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and then it kind of just stops after 5 years. But if you have no claims, we're going to give you $50 to $100 to $200 off of your policy. That's a reward for you not having those claims. It also gives you a reason not to necessarily file a claim if it's really close to your deductible. And that's where getting the right advice from. So you've got to be very careful who you're talking to, but the right agent will give you the good advice to say whether it's worth it or not worth it to file a claim. It's up to you at that spot, whether you want to or not. Essentially, if it's a $500 deductible and it's a $600 claim and you're getting a claims-free discount, you wouldn't want to file that because you're going to get a 15% increase in your premium, and then you're going to lose that claims-free discount, which could be hundreds of dollars, and it's going to net you a loss for several years going forward. It just doesn't make sense to go that route. Look, Ma, I have value. This is why having an agent is very important, because they can give you that advice. You've got to be very careful because your 1-800 number call centers, if you're calling for that advice, they don't necessarily, they might give you the good advice, but they usually have to file the occurrence that you're talking about. So if you said, well, I got a ticket, what should I do? They're gonna put down that you got a ticket. So if the ticket never shows up or comes through, or they don't run a new clue or report on you when the renewal hits, it usually doesn't impact you. If you call them and tell them that, then they put it on your file, then it purposely pulls, and then you've instantly got that. I'm not saying don't call your insurance for advice, but just know that some companies operate that way. When you have an agent, they typically don't do that. They're just going to give you the advice, and the insurance companies are openly okay with that, and they just know that you're the liaison, right? If you've got an agent that you're working with, that's one of the benefits of having that. So the last part, which I told you we would talk about, is that side piece. So they can go 7 to 10 years. So we're talking now about major occurrence. These are felonies, DUIs, manslaughter, things like that. So if you've had any of those major occurrences to where that is an impact, those will go up to about 10 years out. Some companies and agents will tell you they never fall off. They show up. They'll always be there on your history, but they won't necessarily count against you. When I look back on a policy, I recently wrote one for somebody that had a major occurrence on there, and it was like 14 years ago, and sure, it did show up, but it impacted the rate nothing. A lot of agents were telling them, oh, it's going to be high. This is why it's high, because they don't know what they're looking at, some of them, and they're just looking at the wrong things. I already knew that it would impact it. So I told them the reason it was impacted was because of X, Y, and Z, and we got them the best rate that we could with the best company. So let me know what your guys' thoughts are below. Do you think it's fair that an insurance company can go up to 5 years? And do you think it's fair that if you have 2 not at fault accidents that they can go back and re-rate the first one? I'm curious to see what your guys' thoughts are. Let me know in the comments below. If you are interested in learning more about the basics of insurance, I've got my Insurance 101s here for auto and home. Go ahead and check those out. They might give you some more information on just the standard insurance policies. Hope this was helpful. Give me the thumbs up. That helps me the most. Subscribe if you want more content like this. Otherwise, I'm Mark with Think Insurance. I'll see you in the next one.